Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. For today's video I wanted to talk to you a little bit about demonic oppression and the indwelling and control. So let's jump in. So I know this is a demonic possession or demonically possessed individual when dealing with the narcissist, because I've had time stand still and I've seen faces. I saw several faces. One was the duper's delight smirk. I also saw a morphing into this dance she did one time that I had recorded on one of my doorbell cameras. And I also had a situation where once I got on the topic that I understood it was demonic possession, I had investigated that and I was praying about it, and my spirit, my gut started, it was like vibrating to me, like trying to tell me to walk away maybe. I mean, that's what I understand now. But at the time I didn't know what I was supposed to do, to be honest. And the following week I had seen this individual after listening to a podcast somebody had spoke where they had what they call unmasking a narcissist, where you see the demon faces actually in the physical form. And I had listened to his podcast, and then what happened was almost the same exact scenario happened to me, and it had like these rules to it where you had to catch them before they caught you with your eyes on their eyes, and you'd have to catch them from the side, and it would have to be in public, I guess, because the energy, I don't know. After I had disengaged with her, there had been time, and then I was studying this material because I was done, and then I happened out in a public place we had frequented, and I had been looking down and kind of like across to the other, like kind of diagonal, and I happened to see this individual's feet and legs, like walking there with their friend, and it happened to be her as I walked my eyes up her body. And when I did, I had caught her eyes before she had caught mine, and it was from the side, like this guy had suggested. I don't know where he got these rules from, but it worked. I mean, it has to be spiritually orchestrated. It's not something that you can control. It was out and about as well in public. So then the time stood still, and I saw at that same moment that I caught eyes with hers, above her eyes, above her eyelid, in between the eyebrow and eyelid, these golden eyes were poking out. And I had caught it where it had opened from the skin. It was weird. And it was, like I said, spiritual stuff that happened in the physical form to where it looked physical to me. And so next was time stood still, and then her eyes were going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They were golden as well, and they were very bright. But she had inky blackness on her face, so she had just the outer profile, but then it was inky black except for her eyes inside the face. So her eyes were looking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Meanwhile, she's supposed to be walking with her friend, but this situation had occurred where time had stopped, man, and it was like there's a public place, but it was just like me and her, so it was crazy. And after that had occurred, then what happened next was her eyes got really big, like cartoonesque, and they had come out like bulged out, and her lips got like big, like botulism, and like volcanically overflowing of like a fat or something, almost like if you cooked fat in it, you watched it flow over, like, and it was like boo boo, and it was making that noise. And then her face came back on, and it turned into the Scream mask from that movie, exactly like that movie Scream. And it was like intact. It wasn't like dripping, it looked like that Scream mask is dripping, but then it turned into that and it melted off of her face. And when it did, it blew off her face, and it flew like a flag from a hurricane on a flagpole going, and it made that sound, and it went off her face, that Scream mask, as it melted into nothing, into thin air. And then it was like sparkles and clouds or something, kind of like seems crazy, but that's exactly what happened. And then everything came back to, everybody was around and everybody came back, and she was walking with her friend, and I just shook my head when I looked at her like, you disgust me. And then I looked down at my phone, and I turned around and walked away and went the other way. And it changed my life forever, because I'd never experienced something like that before, and It didn't scare me. It was almost like I was prepared for it. Like it scared me kind of after. It didn't scare me, but it had like its own negative effects to where you get a little bit of paranoia or anxiety, like, because then you start rethinking everything in your world. Are they able to see me through mirrors? Because then after that, I start to get stopped by individuals, and I don't know if it was a familiar spirit, and it happened to one other person that was stalking me during that time, and that's what it turned into. It was like the demon was stalking me, or a familiar spirit was stalking me in other people everywhere I'd go, and I'd get this deadened stare, and I knew it was that same entity. I don't know how to explain it. It was like for a month or so, and I almost unmasked somebody else, but they had went around, like, it was to a place to where they were able to get beyond me before the full unmasking happened, because the same thing happened. But it would start with, that's how it started. First, I'd see the eyes up here. They opened up golden eyes, and then then they would tilt down, and that's where you'd see the eyes. That's what would happen. So it would be like a simultaneous thing like that. And the same thing happened on the second person I almost unmasked. Their head went down. I saw the eyes golden, and then they had kept going. Really freaky, though. It freaked me out for a long time to get over that. And yeah, so that's what kind of got me to start the channel. Really, I mean, eventually, that's what happened. But what happens when people get demonically possessed? It starts with influence, and influence on, if you think about it, your thoughts and the way you process things, the things that you process. And that's why things can be generational curses, but doesn't mean that it has to have the curse on you, the effect, because it can try to have influence on you. But if you reject that influence, right, that would be influence defined as affecting the control of how your character is built. But what happens in this is, narcissists end up being bullies even as children. And I've talked a little bit about peer pressure, and what comes with peer pressure is bullies. Bullies control peer pressure. And if you think about it, the black sheep is stuck hanging out with narcissists when they're a child, because they are held to a level in the household that keeps their vibration down to a more, what they would consider or call, neurotic type behavior. So that's something you got to come out of too, is that you're more in a depressive state, and you think more of thoughts of anxiety or depression or sadness, or what bad things can happen. And so these are all placed because of that energy switch that you do when you become the regulator for the family. And then because you're held back, they try to put these inferiority complexes on you and put you down all the time, and to treat you a certain sort of way, and don't give you financial funds and things that you need, or help maybe with your studies and stuff. It holds you down for a time. I'm not saying forever, because somebody is going to be victorious if they're living by the aspects of growing and glowing, and they're not going to live in victimhood mentality. So we all grow and glow from this, but it's just in the initial onset, and how long it can take until you wake up. I mean, it could take 40 something years like I did before I fully woke up. It didn't mean that I walked in those negative attributes, because I had gotten saved when I was 20 years old, but I still had allowed the negative effects for a long time to have a huge, or cause huge problems in my life, mainly from my own folly. If I was following the word the way I'm supposed to, or the way we're supposed to, but we're not perfect, so we're going to fail every day and all the time, man. So it's like, it's hard. But anyway, when this type of stuff happens, like peer pressure gets you caught up in a lot of things. It does help mold your character and stuff. So it's things that can get you caught up in addictions, and then addictions cause influence in your life. They can cause you to want to do certain things when it's not healthy, but because there's some kind of control over you, whether it be a substance or something. So you have to be careful with that stuff. But a lot of times peer pressure leads to that stuff as a child, when you don't even want anything to do with it initially on the onset. But these bullies will lead you into it. It's always a bully, and a bully is a child narcissist, basically. Or one who is a child bully grows up to become the narcissist, well, however you want to look at it, because you can't diagnose them till they're 18. But, it's the influence that something has upon your life. Now, you're born into a certain geographic location with certain culture and a certain family dynamic, and that type of stuff is where these types of generational curses come from, based on that genealogy of both those parents and what has happened in the last few generations, that whether you like it or not, you're going to have to grow up under that yoke of bondage. It doesn't mean that you can't be set free from it or that you have to obey its influence, but it takes a lot to it's a lot to go through it, get over it, and get beyond it. All of it sometimes. A lot of times you don't like any of it, but year after year after year, it has its influence on you. So when you're stuck there for 18 years, you have to abide or be around it as much as you may not want to or hate it. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was a lot of times narcissists, they will sabotage you because they perceive things. They perceive things, you're either a challenge to them or you have slighted them or they have perceived a slight. So they could perceive certain things about individuals. And you got to remember this. It's just the perception. So it may not even be true. But this is how narcissists are. They are very imaginary with things. They imagine so many different things that they believe are factual and they're not. They just come up with their own imaginary, vain imaginations and constructs that are put into their head or through their own neurosis or neuroticism. They always believe negative stuff, and they always believed that the things that were put in their head by their maybe family narcissist hierarchy, that's what got them in the positions they are in, and they actually resonated with it to where you didn't. The one that doesn't become one, it just doesn't resonate with them. Or the complete opposite will resonate with you, which is complete goodness versus complete evil, and you're just not equally yoked with that, but you're stuck in it because it's a family unit. Or the wheat and the tare, that's another thing. That's a whole interesting topic that I think I'll talk about on my other channel, the Revelation channel, because I think that's, for some people, maybe too deep for them to catch that concept and feel like they're not going to be offended. But it's a biblical topic of narrative about the wheat and the tares that I can go deeper into. And so I think it will on that channel next week, but it's like they perceive slights and they perceive challenges, or you are a challenge to them, so they got to beat you down and they got to try to have influence on your life. So they want power and control over your life, and they want to control it and have power over it and to become all negative for you, to make you unsuccessful, not to influence, to increase your knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Of course not. They're there to sabotage and to degrade you, to defeat you. So a lot of times when they're dating you, they will be cursing you and saying bad things about you to other people. And it's not just that they said it once, but they continually say it. So that says something else. It's one thing if you misappropriated something that you said once, but to say it over and over is to really mean what you said and say what you mean. It's not like you can say I was by accident or something. So they're building a narrative with these individuals that are around you to smear you up and to bring down who you are, and the constructs that you live by, which are good ones, ones that are of God. And so it's to sabotage you in the background and to backbite and to lead others to think that you are somebody else, somebody who you are not. And that's what the narcissist does. When you're chasing them, you're trying to convince them that you're not who they say or have this opinion of you and tell you are. And you're like, I'm not that. And you try to convince them of what you are not, that they're telling you are, and you don't get that. Well, that's because they have switched identities with you, and now they're walking in your identity, and that's why they're telling you that, to try to brainwash you into believing it. So somebody who's going to come at them and try to convince them still that they're not who the narcissist thinks they are is going to be somebody who it just didn't stick with them. They don't believe it still. But they're still an ego, so they're still seeking their validation, and there's some sort of codependency there, that you need some sort of affirmation from the narcissist. You're never going to get it. You're never going to get closure either. That's because the power all comes from you. You have to agree to go into covenant with them. You have to agree to leave without their closure, because you're the one in control. As much as you put them in your control, they're not in control. You have to allow them in. You have to give them your authority. You have to give them your courage, your strength, your power. And then you have to live under their yoke and cloak because you choose to, but you don't have to. You can walk away at any time. And that's what happens at some point. We get sick of the narcissist. We understand that they're evil and demonic in each and every way, and we don't want nothing to do with them. It's garbage material to be around that and to allow that influence in your life. But they will perceive threats, and then they will act to take them down. I mean, and that's a slight or something, or it could be a perceived slight. So they will sabotage your career. They will sabotage your making money, your progression anywhere. And that's why they like to stop all of your good things, your traits, the things that bring you joy, the things that you love to do, the things that you're passionate about, and the things that make you look good. They try to stop it all because they came in infatuated with it, but then they can't become like you, so they take it that you are challenging them. You cannot challenge a narcissist. When you do, you're challenging the mask. You're not challenging them. They have nothing to do with it, really. At some point in time, they're being completely controlled. So they're just a puppet for the puppeteer is the one that's controlling the puppet. Anyway, you can give me a like, subscription, and thumbs up. Love y'all. Until next time, sold you up. Peace. We out.